Warning: the material discussed in this show may be sensitive or a trigger for some listeners. Strong language and topics are discussed. We talk with active duty service members and practice OPSEC at all times. You have been warned.
The Bipolar DM, Jason Cottam. His show talks about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Check us out right here on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, also on WLFE-DB.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So take a seat, sit back, and get ready for the Bipolar DM.
Welcome to the Bipolar DM Show. I am your host, Jason, the Bipolar DM. This is a show about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. If you'd like to reach out to us, we can be reached by email. The name of the email is thebipolardm@gmail.com. Or go to www.thebipolardm.com for more information. We have links to our live shows, my podcast, as well as resources on Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and mental health. Messenger, if you go to our Facebook fan page, which is at BipolarDM, so that is at BipolarDM is the handle, and you can contact us through Messenger through the group page as well. Check us out on Facebook on WLFE-DB Radio Network and WLFE-DB.com. So WLFE-DB is our radio station who we represent, and we want to support them and also their shows on Strim TV, including this one. We are on Strim TV under the Variety Unlimited channel, as well as we're on Twitch TV, so it's twitch.tv/thebipolardm. No, I'm sorry. Yes, it is the Bipolar DM. So if you go to twitch.tv/thebipolardm, you will get to our shows that are there as well. We are proud supporters of Safe Space. If you're not sure what Safe Space is, just look at that little logo right up there in the corner there. If you go to WLFE-DB.com and click on that logo that they have on the page, it'll get you to some resources. So if you're in crisis, we are a virtual safe space that you can turn to. Now, we're not doctors, we're not psychiatrists, we're not here to solve your problems, but we are here to listen and not judge, because a lot of us have some very amazing backgrounds that you wouldn't believe. And so we have been there. And we want to help and to provide that safe space. So if you're in crisis, please contact us or go to WLFE-DB.com. And news and noteworthy, I got my laptop back, so that means that we have some better, hopefully better signal and everything like that with the internet and with the processor speed. I'm going to try and double the processor speed. Which will help us also be able to start using green screen if we want to. Right now it just takes up too much information, and I'm getting a little bit of skips when I have multiple people on my streams. So we're still working on that, but we are much better off than we were before. Be sure to check out some of our other shows that we have on WLFE-DB.com, such as Card Pools and Coffee with Lindsay, Everything Yet Nothing, Inside the Drag Closet, Just Cindy, Meet the Authors, Paratalk Radio, Real Talk with Dom, The Sofa Guys, Where's My Sage, Doorway to the Dead, Modern Fem-Illy, instead of Family, Fem-Illy, Off the Cuff, and Southern Fried Paranormal. So those are some of those other shows that we got going on too. So check those out on WLFE-DB.com. And today we are, in honor of Suicide Awareness Month, we are supporting the Stop Soldier Suicide program, which is a mission to bring suicide awareness to the civilian population about the suicide rate of veterans, which is 22 a day. So by the end of this day, 22 veterans will have committed suicide, and they could have been prevented. And so we are going to be talking about that today. So let me throw up a banner real quick. A disclaimer. Oops, didn't mean to hit that. Hit that. We are going to be talking about suicide today, so this is going to get kind of sensitive. And let's click back over here, so we'll stay right there. Anyways, so veterans of all branches of service, doesn't matter what branch you served in, whether it's the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, we are all at a higher risk than the general civilian population for committing suicide. It's just by the nature of our job, and the strain it puts on marriages and our lives as we really give up our personal liberties as citizens of the United States and become the literal property of the United States government. And a lot of times we're treated as much, too, just literal property, without regard to the human nature. And whether you served during wartime or peacetime like me, we've seen stuff, we've done stuff, and a lot of the memories we carry with us, we'll never be able to shed, no matter how many years pass by. And in October, one of the things that I'm doing in the raising awareness is I'm trying to ruck 22 miles a day. 22 pounds a day in a rucksack, for a total of 50 miles in the month of October. So that's a couple miles every day. I'm behind in my count, but I'm still trying. The goal is to just keep trying and get out there as many times as I can, even if I don't hit my mark of 50 miles in this month. But what rucking is, it's a military term, is particularly in the Army, where you take out a rucksack, which is a backpack, a military backpack, put in your gears and supply, and then go out into the field and march. And so it's marching with a backpack and with weights. And so typically as a combat medic, my combat load of total gear was about 90 pounds, including medical supplies. I'm only going to be carrying 22 pounds in honor of the 22 veterans a day that commit suicide in my rucksack. And it'll be me and Harper together as we march out there on the streets of Branson and try and raise some awareness. And their goals is to raise awareness, and it's also to end the stigma of mental illness. So we want to really work hard at that, because when I grew up in the military, it was a different era, a different kind of military, and mental illness was the death nail to your career. If you had depression or any kind of mental or psychiatric problem, you were out. And unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe I don't know what the way life turns out, but I was caught up in that system. When I was 22, I was diagnosed with bipolar and borderline personality disorder, and was discharged from the military. And so it was very devastating to me, because I am a Navy brat, born in a Navy hospital, went to a DoD Department of Defense school, graduated from one in Japan, and then served in active duty. And so half of my life has literally been in the military, and that culture and the way militaries are. We're war machines. We go in, we break things and kill people. That is what our mission is. And when we have no mission, then you have what's happened in Afghanistan. We had no mission there. We'd already beat back the Taliban. We had control. We were not having any soldier deaths for over a year. Mission was going as it was, but the problem was he had no mission, no victory in sight, or no goal. Compound that with a country that's never been taken in over its thousands and thousands of years of history. Not the British, not the Soviets, not us. Several countries have tried to take Afghanistan and has never been able to hold it. And it's crap. I totally lost train of thought. Sorry, I had my alarm go off. But without a mission, we have no purpose. And when the civilian population starts saying, we support the troops, but we don't support the mission, or we don't support the war. Well, who do you think is fighting this war? Who do you think is dying for this war, being maimed, being wounded in various ways? For you, the ungrateful nation. And so for you to say that you support the troops and not the war is a slap in the face to every soldier that has fought and died in this war, and to every veteran who has ever fought, served, or died for this country. Because for us, it is about the mission. It is what we are sacrificing our lives for. It's for the mission. We die for each other, but our mission is number one. And so we want to raise awareness about mental illness as well. And we're going to take a quick... No, wait, we're fine. I'm looking at the wrong clock. But I almost ended up to be one of the 22 myself. What had happened was, it was several years ago, I had started a new medication called, I'm not going to go into what it's called, but I started a new psychiatric medication on top of the half dozen or more other medications I was already on. And I had a bad reaction to it, in which I became suicidal. And one night I overdosed on sleeping pills and survived, obviously. But it was very devastating to my wife, who and my daughter, who had found me unconscious. And but it wasn't until several months later that I saw a commercial in which that same drug was mentioned in an advertisement, and it mentions that suicidal thoughts and actions are a possible side effect of this particular medication. And so, it was just unreal. But I almost ended up being one of the 22 because I felt that hopelessness, the complete, utter lack of hope that life will get better. That it won't. And I want to tell you, if you're out there and you're struggling right now with depression or PTSD or any of those other things, life is worth living. It will get better. It always gets better. It's just going to take some time and some work that you may not want to put in, but work has to be done, because while medication is a great tool, it is not a silver bullet. Medication alone will not cure depression, although it will help with the symptoms of it and also a lot of times the signs of it. But you'll also have to work with therapy and coping techniques and stuff like that. So it's very important to have a very well-rounded mental health and wellness, and really raising the alerts. You need to be able to recognize what suicide ideation looks like. People don't always follow every pattern, but there are certain patterns that are pretty common when we're talking about suicide ideation. One is depression. Depression can lead to suicidal thoughts, and that's the most common type of reason people become suicidal, is because of depression. Other signs is loss of interest in just about anything and everything, especially things that they gave them great joy, such as hobbies and sports, or even sex. Total lack of interest in that. Change in diet, whether they're overeating or undereating. Change in sleeping habits, such as oversleeping or undersleeping, or insomnia. One other sign that's very important to look forward to is a sudden change in mood from one of depression to one of very uplifted and upbeat within like a day or so. So this would be very shocking when you see it, and that's usually a sign that the person has made the decision to commit suicide and even set a time and date for it, and they are now relieved. And so as if a burden has been lifted off of them. And so that's a very dangerous sign when you see somebody just suddenly one day go from a depressed state to one of joy. If they start giving away personal items or items of value to other people, put their in, beyond just putting their affairs in order, but also giving things away. If they're talking about death and suicide, take them seriously. Don't. If somebody says they want to kill themselves, that they want to die, don't just think of it as a cry for help, because it is a cry for help. But it's more than that. It needs to be taken seriously. And if that person is saying that they want to die, that they want to end it all, or they want to hurt themselves, you need to get them in to see a doctor right away, whether it's through the emergency room or have them call the crisis or the suicide prevention hotline, which is now 988. Let me go ahead and put some of those numbers up on that. Okay, here we go. So, National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 988. The crisis text line, text HOME to 741-741. If you are not a tech, if you're not one that wants to talk on the phone, the crisis text line, I've worked with these people, I've worked for them. I went through their training and everything like that. So, it will be, if you're more of a texter, they will help you out and they'll get you hooked up with resources. So, 741-741 text HOME or help or something, and they will automatically get you connected to somebody. There's also the old national, or the Veterans Crisis Line, which is 1-800-273-8255. Press 1 if you're a veteran, and I'll get you into somebody who has been specially trained to help veterans who are in crisis. But don't let it get that late. Don't let it get too late. If you are going through a rough patch, get yourself some help right away. Whether it's getting back on medication, starting therapy, light therapy, diet, change of exercise, whatever it takes, you need to be taking care of your physical and mental health. And don't let anybody shame you because of your mental health or mental illnesses that you may have. It has taken me many years to accept my diagnosis of bipolar and borderline, mostly because I wanted to get back into the military. I knew with those diagnoses it would be impossible. But the VA, not a single doctor would even dare to attempt to re-diagnose me or to even review my diagnosis. Not in the 25 years that I have been in the VA system. And so I just, now that that's passed me by, there's no chance of me ever getting in the military, even if the President of the United States should sign a piece of paper letting anybody with a mental illness back in. It just ain't going to happen. I'm too old now. And I got a family to think about. So, it's not like I was 20 and young and no kids. I could, go anywhere and do anything. It doesn't work that way. But I did eventually come to terms with it. I'm still working on adapting and, and living in a civilian world versus a military world too. I've been many decades with that, but still working on it. And like I said, if somebody's talking about suicide, take them seriously. Talk about suicide. Don't be afraid to talk about it. That's the other thing. It has never happened. It does not cause people to commit suicide if you broach the subject and say, hey bro, are you thinking about hurting yourself or killing yourself? And be just as straight up with that. That is as easy as it gets. You ask them point blank, straight out, are you thinking about killing yourself? And if they say yes, you get them help. You don't leave them alone either. You need to have somebody with them at all times until they get in to see a doctor and get some treatment and get some help. So we're going to go ahead and go to a quick commercial break. And if I can find some commercials. Actually, I should have some over here. Oh, there we go. All right, here we go.
Rochester Winter Parafest is back, March 25th, 26th, and 27th of 2022. Come say hi to Naked and Afraid celebrities Melanie Elizabeth and Trent Nielsen, Haunted Case Files Jack Kenna, Monster Quest Steve Coles, and more. This event has it all: paranormal investigators, UFO researchers, Bigfoot researchers, and even photo opportunities for the kids with Buddy the Bigfoot. Oh, okay, adults too. Come on down and get a tattoo from Ink Master Tony DeVille. There are psychic gallery and individual readings, as well as radio personalities, authors, jewelry, makeup artists, and so much more. It's only $15 per person, and children under 10 are free. March 25th, 26th, and 27th of 2022. For more information, go to WLFE-DB.com. Yes, Winter Parafest is back. Valley Oak Event Center, Geneseo, New York, next to Denny's.
Rainbow Soul, a queer perspective on spirituality. Join Hollis Taylor, a non-binary author, witch, psychic, and alchemical mage, with fellow drag king Lacrosse Ortiz, a Jewish Taino that identifies as an atheist. These guys explore deep spiritual topics with weekly special guests and offer dream interpretation and tarot readings and more. Explore spirituality beyond mainstream religion with these uniquely queer perspectives. Dive deep into the Rainbow Soul. A live discussion on Sundays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Sundays. Just hashtag Rainbow Soul Vodcast on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and more. Hashtag Rainbow Soul Vodcast. Featured on the LGBTQ Friends channel, the WLFE DB Network.
Welcome back to the show, and I know it's kind of flying by a little fast, especially doing it this way, but welcome to the second half of the show. We talked about in the first half soldier suicide and the stopping of soldier suicide, and a little bit about mental health in the military. In this half of the show, on this half, we're going to be talking about, or this segment, about Dungeons and Dragons and its evolution, especially to now going from the satanic panic to it being used in modern therapy and play therapy with not only children but with adults and soldiers and stuff like that, and VA hospitals and other places. D&D has gone through a great change in perception through the lens of culture over the many decades it's been around. It's coming up on its 50th anniversary in 2024. When it was originally invented in 1974 by a man named Gary Gygax and some of his fellow gamers. It was an evolution out of an original game called Chainmail, which was very military war games like, and they decided to go from a medieval setting to a fantasy setting with magic and spells and different types of individuals in this world and monsters and stuff like that. And thus was begun Dungeons and Dragons. And it's gone through some rough spells during the 80s. We had what was called the Satanic Panic, in which parents blamed Dungeons and Dragons as the reason why there was a rise in suicides among youth, why there was increase in drug use. Basically, anything that society was having problems with when it involved the youth, it was blamed on Dungeons and Dragons. And there was several organizations that were created specifically to counter Dungeons and Dragons and to try and destroy it. Yet, we endured, us players, the stigma of playing Dungeons and Dragons, not only from parents, but from our fellow students who looked down upon us as geeks and nerds and outcasts. And as a new generation has come in and newer versions of Dungeons and Dragons, which is much more playable, has come about. We have a new generation that has never known the Satanic Panic, and few of them even know what it was. They just know this game called Dungeons and Dragons, and it's a lot like playing Game of Thrones and other things, except there's a lot of magic, and that's what they know jumping in. And this edition, the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, is so much easier to play than the 2nd edition that I played, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition. It was a totally different way of playing the game. It was also much more dungeon crawl, slay monsters, kill everything, murder hobo, and get the loot. Now there's a lot more in role-playing and negotiation and stuff like that. I have a game going on right now where they've negotiated out of so many fights and boss-level fights, it's unreal, especially with high dice rolls, like natural 20s. They're able to do extremely well in negotiating and getting out of fights or avoiding them completely. And so Dungeons and Dragons has definitely evolved over the years in its perception, and it's also in the media as well. The media really hyped up and jumped on the Satanic Panic of the 80s and early 90s, and really played up people's fears. They had a lot of bogus interviews, like people who claimed they saw their children summon demons, and a demon appeared in their room, and bullshit like that. You know, they just sensationalization of the story was unreal. And so, but now you have shows like Big Bang Theory and what was the Stranger Things and others, which talks about and actually shows the playing of Dungeons and Dragons. And so for the first time in a generation, people were seeing this game called Dungeons and Dragons, and they were wondering, what is it all about? And so live streaming of shows like Critical Role and Acquisitions Incorporated, where players are streaming their games online. This new edition of Dungeons and Dragons is also very playable on the internet. I have my own live stream called Bipolar Dragons, which I'll talk about in a little bit, where a group of us get together and play Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going through the Curse of Strahd campaign right now. But live streaming has come a long ways too, because it just didn't exist, a decade ago, and nobody would have imagined anybody wanting to sit there and for 4 hours watch the group of people play Dungeons and Dragons, play a game. But it does happen, and they're wildly popular. And so it gets into my own show, Bipolar Dragons, and like I said, who we are is just a group of regular adults that love Dungeons and Dragons, various experience levels, from the very beginners to those that have been playing for decades, like myself. And we just get together every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time at The Bipolar Dragons on Facebook Live or twitch.tv/The Bipolar DM. And you can see those, or if you just go to bipolardm.com, you'll get links to those shows, and especially on YouTube and stuff like that. So check that out. It's what we do is we are playing Dungeons and Dragons, and Dungeons and Dragons, of course, is a storytelling game, a collective storytelling where a group of us people get together. I come up with a main line or idea of the story, but the players are actors within this story that have full range of control over their characters, what they do, where they say, where they go, who they, how they decide to interact with the world around them. And so they're able to improvise and adapt and do that. And we do this because we love the game. We love playing. We love the fellowship. We have such great time there, just playing together, and have such a great chemistry. And so really enjoyed this game. And We are doing this through the StreamYard, using StreamYard. So we stream the games on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on Twitch TV. And I have minis available, and actually give you a preview of what we got going on. Let me just show ahead and switch screen over to our mini screen. And that's a preview of the field of battle. There's still some more to be added there, particularly Baba Lasara's hut, walking hut. But that's what we're looking at, though, for Dungeons and Dragons. And so, Bipolar Dragons. And we're doing stuff like that. I mentioned before that Dungeons and Dragons has been used in therapy, and that's one thing that's been very interesting to me, especially, is the use of Dungeons and Dragons in therapy, particularly like by there's organizations like Geek Therapeutics and Critical Core. Critical Core has developed a Dungeons and Dragons system for children and adults on the autism spectrum, and some great tools there if you go to Critical Core and check them out in their Kickstarter. Geek Therapeutics is a more than just an organization, but they also are a school of learning where they teach how to use geek culture and artifacts in a therapeutic manner to bridge the gap of therapy with their clients. So example of this be like using the Mandalorian in a family therapy, where a father and son relationship is between Grogu and the Mandalorian, and it's a father-son relationship very early on, and how he is a much different person when he's with Baby Yoda than he was as this cold-blooded bounty hunter. And so you're able to draw people in and tell them, all right, you've seen this, and so you see these relationships. What kind of things does the Mandalorian do to show his love and love for this creature? By putting his life on the line, by violating one of the most sacred rules of the guild, the Bounty Hunters Guild, which was never to betray your interest, or your principal, which is the person who hired you. In which, even though the Mandalorian completed his mission and technically skirted around that law or that rule by waiting until after he delivered the Baby Yoda to, and if you haven't seen the spoiler alerts, all right, he delivers the babies to the Empire remnants in season 1 in the very first episode, and changes his mind and goes back and kills everybody and takes Baby Yoda with him and goes on the run. It's been great. I've done some of the training, some of their classes. I want to go back and finish their class they have on the Game Master Therapeutics therapy class. We're using Dungeons and Dragons in particular in a therapeutic session and setting. And I've actually talked to and know many doctors, psychologists who have successfully have been using Dungeons and Dragons for years in a therapy session. And how that looks is it is more than just playing the game, but it's playing with a purpose. And it is a safe space for the player to experiment with coping mechanisms in the various situations, and to role play how they would act, or how their character would act, or should or would not act in a given situation. And so Dungeons and Dragons has been perfect to be melding those aspects of psychology and therapy in a game setting that's very playable, easy to learn. You learn better by playing the game than by buying the player's handbook and reading through it. I guarantee you, by watching is a really great way to learn how to play. So watch shows like Critical Role, which is a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors who get together, play Dungeons and Dragons. They're really good because they go into character and they have character voices and stuff like that. really neat. Um, but it's directed role playing is what it is with the purpose, and then afterwards you go through and you kind of have a session where you decompress and then talk about what was going on in the game, any kind of issues that might have popped up, stuff like that, and then break, And this can be in a group setting, or it could be on a one-on-one, playing a duet between just the psychologist and the patient. And so it's amazing what Dungeons and Dragons, especially in the last 10 years, 15 years, has been doing in the world of medicine and psychology, and to helping people feel better. I know in my own life, Dungeons and Dragons has done great many things to help me. It's one of the few things in my life that I'm able to be consistent at. I can't hold a job. I've tried. I've had some really great jobs too that were very flexible, and I couldn't do them because of my mental illness. But Dungeons and Dragons, though I do have my off days and bad days when I don't want to DM, gets me and forces me to get up and get out of bed and to perform, because people are depending on you, depending on the dungeon master to come in with a story and be prepared and stuff like that. And so Dungeons and Dragons has been great in helping me with preparing and eating up my time too, because I'm a disabled vet. I don't work. I have a lot of time on my hands. My kids are in school. I only have them a couple days a week, and so I'm left with days and days and hours of nothing but time on my hands. And so Dungeons and Dragons has given me a way to, utilize that time and still exercise my brain as well. It's not like playing video games or watching TV and movies, where you just shift into neutral. You have to actively engage your brain in this game, and that was one of the great things about it, is how you do that. And Wizards of the Coast has been fantastic in being themselves inclusive at the game table. They have gone out of their way to reach out to the LGBTQ plus community, and also to help, with, wherever they can when it does come to events and stuff like that, whether it's getting Dungeons and Dragons to kids in hospitals or veterans in the VA system or wherever, they're really big into it. And so they, some people might worry they go too far. I don't know. I think they're rocking a good balance between being inclusive without being offensive. And, because there's certain behaviors they will not accept, especially bullying of any kind. This table is a safe space, and most of us that have played Dungeons and Dragons have experienced bullying of some kind in our lives, especially during our youth. What is the future of Dungeons and Dragons? That's a $1 million question, or $1 billion question, because just recently Wizards of the Coast has announced that they are going to be releasing a new evolution of Dungeons and Dragons. Not a new edition, but evolution, which will probably mean 5.5, version 5.5, which will be one where they tighten up some rules that's been going on, clarifying some other rules, adding a couple little things into the smooth out gameplay, and also increasing the size of the monsters manual to include monsters that are found in, such as Xanathar's Guide and Volo's Guide to Monsters and stuff like that, and some other resources that have been now more or less adopted into Dungeons and Dragons canon, the official books. And so be looking on that in 2024, which is the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons creation. They will be releasing 3 new books, which is the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster's Manual, all together in a bundle with probably, I'm not going to guarantee this, but I'm betting they're also going to have a DM screen in there too. And all together it'll be $170. It'd be $150 if you buy the books separately together, because they're about $49.99 a pop is what traditionally they have been. And I don't see Dungeons and Wizards of the Coast changing that price anytime soon. That's still pretty damn expensive. One of the things that I am doing right now that I'm very proud of as a mission, and I mentioned some of the things that Dungeons and Dragons has been done in the military, and that is Dungeons and Dog Tags. Now, Dungeons and Dog Tags is a organization where we get online Dungeons and Dragons games for our veterans and for our troops, active duty troops. And that is organized either using like Discord or Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or some other virtual tabletop, or even Zoom. We link together dungeon masters, both civilian and military, with various backgrounds. Some even are we do have a couple that are actual psychologists who use Dungeons and Dragons in therapy sessions. But as a disclaimer, that these are not therapy settings. You know, this is just a game, but even so, there is therapeutic benefit in these games, and so Dungeons and Dragons is to bring Dungeons and Dragons to Dungeons and Dog Tags is to bring Dungeons and Dragons to our veterans where they're at. And right now, our first phase is we're doing it with online. And then we're going to work on also doing physical games in VA systems, in the VA system at VA hospitals and retirement centers and places like that. And the third thing is to also organize games for active duty independents. We can't forget about the dependents of our military. I was one of them for 19 years of my life. And I have a great love for the military and all its branches, even though we might rip on each other. It's all in good fun when at the end of the day we're on the same side and we have the same mission. Dungeons and Dog Tags came about as a idea I had while playing as Dungeon Master, running about 12 hours total of online games over the weekend at GaryCon 13. And at the time, I was watching a lot of coverage about soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, in Afghanistan at the time. And the idea struck me as like, why can't I do this online gaming with soldiers over there? I got free time at all hours a day. I can arrange times for when they can play overseas. And so that's when the idea of Dungeons and Dog Tags came into play. Now, it's taken almost a year, several months to get where we're at now, especially. We've had some great boosts in our presence out there. One was by Gary Gygax's son, Luke Gygax, who's a lieutenant colonel in the Army, I believe the Army National Guard. I know in the Army. And he's a great supporter of the military, of course. And so he helped me get in touch with another man who I've not yet had a chance to work with, but who is going to help out with getting Dungeons and Dog Tags going and getting us out there. And so particularly, hopefully, on our military bases, I hope. Through MWR, which is MWR is Moral Welfare and Recreation, which is our equivalent of the YMCA. And so where we're located, well, we're located on the internet. That's the beauty of it. We don't have to be located in any one spot. And so we can be found. We have a Discord server that we have set up particularly for the veterans to be able to hook up with our dungeon masters and to talk amongst themselves and other resources. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. So I didn't mean to turn it on actually in the first place. It just sounded really cool. I loved military cadence, drum cadence. It just reminds me of Fife and Corps and my time in the service, especially doing drill and stuff like that, drill and ceremony. I absolutely excelled at drill and ceremony. I loved it to death and was very good at it. I learned drill and ceremony originally in high school in JROTC, and then I went to ROTC in college, and then I went into the enlisted in the Army, where I just kicked ass in basic training. The physical part was the hardest part, but the classes, I had a lot of the classes already in ROTC and JROTC, such as being able to disassemble an M16, to be able to read a map, various other things, ranks and salutes and marching and all that good stuff. And yeah, it's but I say all that to say that I miss the culture. We very are different amongst ourselves when you see veterans together. We talk differently, we act differently, and the bond that we have, that is the military, that core thing that is through all of us, bridges the gaps of race and sex and orientation and all those other things. And that is the beautiful thing about Dungeons and Dragons, is that it's inclusive of that and allows us to be who we want to be in this safe setting. And yeah, it was Dungeons and Dog Tags is going to be a lot of fun. I got one game on right now, which is on Fridays at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time to 9 p.m. And also that's one game that we got going on, and I have a Tuesday game as well with the Phoenix, which is a rehab program. They use events like physical exercise and sports and stuff like that to help foster sobriety. And one of the things socially that they're reaching out and started doing through one lady named Miles is to play Dungeons and Dragons. And so we're playing for 2 hours a day on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think it is 6 p.m. Central. Yep, 6 p.m. Central. Is Roll for Initiative, and we play on Zoom and use Roll20 by screen share, so that you can see kind of the setup that we have going on. That's how they run things for their game, and so I comply with that. My personal game, I'm more theater than mine. I use Discord for audio because it's easier to run on even my phone. It doesn't take up a lot of space like a video does, and but it's also got the rooms and servers and stuff like that, the great chat features that are available too that you can use. And so Discord has been very good for me, and getting Dungeons and Dragons out there and playing Dungeons and Dragons online. And I also like to use a video camera as well, so I'm using the mini camera on that I just showed, so of the miniatures on the game board, and that's how I like to play my Dungeons and Dragons. You know, I am using Roll20 for Roll for Initiative just because that's what the standard is. I had to do some investing money into it, which I don't mind doing, especially for a good cause like that. And it's been very useful too. I really got my money's worth on some of the packages that I got for Roll20, and yeah, we just had our first game last week, this past Tuesday. It was great. Had 3 veterans. I had 2 NPCs, and we're supposed to have picked up another 2 veterans to play, so we'll have a full complement. I'll probably still have the NPCs in there or kill them off or something like that, but yeah, it's going to be great having a full set of veterans in there. Yeah, that's also that is part of Dungeons and Dog Tags, but it's the for those veterans that are in recovery is what that is for. Okay. You know, I want to thank everybody who has tuned in today, especially on such a sensitive topic as talking about suicide awareness and soldier suicide. And I want to thank everybody who is a veteran out there. You know, we have a lot of resources out there, like the Veterans Crisis Net, MakeTheConnection.net, VetCenter.va.gov, VA.gov.homeless, you know, all kinds of things to help you out if you're in trouble. You just got to reach out. And I know that is the hardest thing in the world to do, especially to admit that you need help. But you've got to do it because we'll reach out to you. You know, we'll meet you where you're at. But you gotta make a little initiative and make an effort though too, because without that effort, that energy, you're not going to move anywhere. In fact, you'll slip deeper into your depression and worse. You know, until you eventually do come out of it. But you know. Be thinking about supporting me. If you go to Jason Cottam on Facebook, and it's JASONCOTTOM on Facebook. I do have a fundraiser going on with the 50-mile ruck challenge, and that's 50 miles in October, rucking 22 pounds through in my backpack to represent the 22 soldiers a day that commit suicide. And we really want to raise not only funds for this, because they help a lot of programs with the veterans, but they also we want people to know about mental health and mental illness. That it's not something that's scary. That every time the media has a story about a mass shooting of some kind at a school or elementary school or daycare, the person has some kind of mental illness, and the reality is less than 5% of the population with mental illness is violent towards others. Now, we're more violent towards ourselves, our own individual selves, through acts of self-harm, self-mutilation, and suicide. But that's far greater the risk to us with the mental illness is our harm to ourselves than us being a harm to society. Yet the media has portrayed us as one bad day from snapping and taking everybody out, like in Michael Douglas in the movie called Falling Down, I believe it's called, where he's a guy who's wasn't always actually totally altogether there to begin with, but finally snaps after going through a divorce and losing custody of his daughter and losing his job and his sense of purpose, and he just goes on a killing spree. And the people he killed, of course, are bad guys, and so it doesn't make it right. But he takes, almost a vigilante role of people that have harmed him, and but the portrayal of mental illness is pretty horrendous in a lot of these movies that are out there, and the opportunities to portray it in a positive light or in a light that can be helpful for others is often overlooked and missed. Case in point is Captain America. The character in the Marvel movies, and we're talking Marvel canon only, not the comic books, but in the Marvel movies, shows clear signs of PTSD from particularly World War II and special operations, and then later on after the end war and stuff like that, and their showdown with Thanos that went bad, and half the population was wiped out. But in the movie, he is shown in Captain America: The First Avenger even that he has suffering from mental illness of PTSD, with flashbacks, ruminating. Of course he doesn't drink because, well, he's Captain America, and the other reason why is his body metabolizes alcohol so quickly he can't get drunk. So he can't have a drinking problem, but he's very, he isolates himself. He becomes a creature of habit. He lays low. He doesn't get involved, and it's not until he meets somebody and on his morning jog that got him into the VA system and the talking to veterans, and well, not the VA system, but got him into talking veterans groups and stuff like that, and talking about his story. But they didn't play it up. They didn't even talk about it. They just showed a little bit, and that's it. And they could have, one of my flash things I have up here is one I made. This one right here for even Captain America had PTSD. And that is so true. Captain America had PTSD, and we need to recognize our soldiers, our heroes, that have also suffered the invisible wounds of war. Here's my banner for Dungeons and Dog Tags. Anyways, all right, we're coming towards the end of our show. We still got about 5 minutes left, 4 minutes and 4.5 minutes left in the show. So once again, I want to talk about recognizing the signs and symptoms of suicidal suicidal ideation, or suicidal thoughts, which is talking about suicide and death, saying things like they wish they were never born, or wish they were dead, or people would be better off without them, people would be happier with them gone, or you just wait until I'm gone and you'll regret it, stuff like that. Depression, which is, the signs of that is withdrawal, lethargy, hopelessness, the down mood, isolation, a lot of things like that. And to be aware of these things, and to not be afraid to ask the hard questions. Are you suicidal? Are you thinking about harming yourself? Are you okay? And not just say, no, don't say, are you okay? You say, are you suicidal? Are you thinking about harming yourself? You be direct. And so we want to put that out there for Suicide Awareness Month, that you take the talk about suicide and death seriously. Do not just blow it off and think that they'll be fine after a while. And if you are in crisis, we have the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which is 988. The crisis text line, which is text home to 741-741, and the Veterans Crisis line, which is 800-273-8255, press 1 to be connected to somebody specially trained to talk with you about what's going on as a veteran. I think that's all I got going on. Dungeons and Dog Tags. Bipolar Dragons. Yes, let me talk about that real quick as we're coming out of the show. But Bipolar Dragons is at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live at The Bipolar Dragons, or on Twitch TV, twitch.tv/TheBipolarDM. Or just go to thebipolardm.com and click on the live links, and we'll get you to the shows. You can listen to the show anytime, anywhere you find your favorite podcast. So we're on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeart, Google, a whole bunch of them there. So, usually we try and get this out in the next day or so, maybe sometimes in the next couple days. But we get these out on podcast as well. And if you wanted to reach out to us, you can get to us by email, thebipolardm@gmail.com. And our group page, again, is the Bipolar DM, which is at Bipolar DM is the group page. Next week, we do not have a guest yet, but let's see, it's going to be the weekend of Halloween on the other hand, so I'm not sure. I'm going to have a trip to Oklahoma, so I might be pre-recording that particular episode as well. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, we got all kinds of goody stuff going on, and looking for guests. So thank you again for tuning in, and the Bipolar DM Show, and to WLFE-dbradio.db.com. And remember, everybody, take your meds.
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week, 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels: Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows, LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows, Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE db.com, where our shows are your shows.